Okay, so in this tutorial we're going to look at how we can get some input data via the keyboard into our programs. You can see I have got the basic setup. I've got my folder keyboard input, I've got my Java file keyboard input.java. I've set up the basic public class name of the project, in this case keyboard input, and then my public main function as well. Now we're going to use something called the scanner class to allow us to take something that the user types on the keyboard and put it into a variable in our program. To use the scanner class, we need to input what we call the scanner library. This is going to give us access to some functions that are going to allow us to actually input whatever it is the user types. So the way we do that is up here above public class keyboard input, I've actually pressed enter a couple of times to create some blank lines. And on line 1, I'm going to type input java.util.scanner and then the semicolon. Now don't worry that it's got a sort of a yellowy brown squiggly line. That just tells us or alerts us, hey, you do realize that even though you've imported the scanner library, you haven't actually used it yet. Well, I'm okay with that because I've still got a little bit of this code to write. The important thing to note here though is whenever you're following through the code with me, where I have written a capital letter, you should write the same capital. Where I've written it all in lowercase, which is the majority of our code in Java will be lowercase letters, then you need to do lowercase as well. Java is what we know as a case-sensitive language. If you are a bit sloppy with where you use capital letters and where you use lowercase letters, that's actually going to confuse the Java compiler and you're going to end up with all sorts of problems and not be able to run your code. Now, the rest of our code is going to be inside the main function. So, in order to use the scanner class, we need to create a scanner object. Scanner here, when I say class, I really just mean sort of a fancy data type. So instead of writing string input or string int input or something like that, I'm going to put scanner input. But instead of just putting a semicolon there, and that's it, like we've seen in other variable declarations, I need to extend this line a bit because scanner is a little bit more sophisticated. We can use the scanner class for both input and output. So we need to be really precise and tell the Java compiler that the variable here called input is going to be used to get data into our program rather than display data out or send it out of our program. And we've got system.in that goes in there. And that's all that line's doing. Telling the compiler, hey, this variable input is designed to get data in to our program. Now, like all good programmers, if we're going to get data from the user, we should actually provide a prompt to that user. Now system.out, notice with system.in, now we're displaying data, so system.out, there's a pattern there. I've chosen print here because I want the cursor on the same line as my prompt. So I'm going to type enter your first name. And yes, I've deliberately hard-coded that space. And we just finish that with a semicolon. Now we need somewhere to put this input. So I'm going to put that into a string variable called first name because that makes sense for the context of what I'm using here. And that's assigned input, our scanner object, dot, and in this case I'm going to go next line. Next line is a built-in function. It's part of the scanner library that when we imported the scanner library in line 1, it gives us access to a variety of functions. One of them called nextLine that the Java developers have already written. We can't see the code, we just need to know how to use it. This is used to get string data into our program. Now, once we've got that data, we need to close off the connection to our keyboard and we type the name of our scanner object.close, open and close parentheses. We don't put anything inside it, but we do need to finish with a semicolon. And then finally, partly to get rid of this yellow squiggly line on line 10, we're going to output a little personalized message using the name that the user typed. So system.out.println at this stage, print ln, because I want this time my cursor to be on the next line. So I'm going to write a concatenated message. What that means is I'm combining some hard-coded text, hello, again, yes, I've deliberately hard-coded that space, plus there's our concatenation symbol. We're going to join to that hard-coded text the contents of the string variable called first name. And just because I can, I'm then going to say we'll join onto the end of that an exclamation mark. Hard-coded, of course. This is a string literal. And then we finish with a semicolon at the end. Now, to get rid of that black dot, remember at the top, I just press Control S on my keyboard to save my work. Okay, let's try that one more time. This time when I'm typing Jane, hello Jane. In the next tutorial, we'll look at how we can extend this input object to collect data from the keyboard that's not a string value.